Zile pline de inspirație, am început luni și iată că am ajuns vineri cu o zi dedicată CSR-ului. Am vorbit despre antreprenori, am vorbit despre management, am vorbit despre inovație. Am atins și subiectul media and marketing într-o zi foarte, foarte intensă ieri și, apropo, dacă ați ratat una dintre dezbaterile noastre, dintre sesiunile noastre, dintre experiențele, să le spunem, trăite la Zilele Biz, aveți posibilitatea să le recuperați pe toate, foarte simplu, gratuit, cuvântul magic despre care am aflat din vânzări, pe conturile de social media ale revistei Biz. Iar acum continuăm ultima noastră sesiune cu un invitat special și permiteți-mi, vă rog frumos, să trec la engleză. Allow me please to introduce our next speaker here on stage for Zilele Biz. Mathieu Gregori is the founder and president of ECONOS, a great startup to inspire and help you in reducing your carbon footprint.
Yes.
How we'll do that, I hope to find out soon.
Thank you so much. Bună ziua tuturor. Thank you. Thank you for your energy. Now I'm going to switch to English. I already talked to my friends from Revista Biz. Next time I will speak in Romanian. So my name is Mathieu, but you can also call me Matei, and I'm the founder of ECONOS. ECONOS is a consulting firm specialized on sustainable development. Today we're going to talk about carbon footprint, how to define it, and how to reduce it. So let's go back to the basics. What is a carbon footprint? Carbon footprint can be defined as a total amount of greenhouse gases generated by your activity. Unfortunately, our everyday activities produce greenhouse gas emissions. You have direct emissions which are very straightforward and easy to identify. For example, when you take your car, you consume 1 liter of fuel, which produces CO2 emissions. And there are also indirect emissions, which are a little bit more difficult to identify. For example, when you eat a meal, you actually produce CO2 emissions indirectly. So a carbon footprint can be at a personal level. So we're going to talk about my carbon footprint. But we can also talk about a company's carbon footprint, but also a country's carbon footprint. That said, do you know your carbon footprint? Have you already estimated your carbon footprint? My carbon footprint is, unfortunately, of 18 tons CO2 emissions last year. To put it in perspective, in Romania, we estimate the average carbon footprint to 6.5 tons of CO2 per capita, which is good when we compare it to France, for example, where I come from, in which we have a country of more than 10 tons of CO2 emissions per year. Do you know which country has the most CO2 emissions per capita? US, China. A hint, it's per capita. It's per capita. A hint, it's where the football World Cup is currently taking place. For football fans, you've guessed it, Qatar. Qatar has more than 35 tons of CO2 emissions per capita. Unfortunately, the challenge today is not to have the biggest CO2 emissions per capita, but the lowest. The IPCC scientists estimated to 2 tons the carbon budget me, you, everyone on this planet have each year. But 2 tons is very hard to respect for most of us, especially, I believe, for the people in this room. Myself, I said it earlier, I have a carbon footprint of 18 tons last year, and this is because one flight from Bucharest to New York with a stopover in France is equivalent to 1 ton of CO2. So just with one flight, you already consumed half of your carbon allowance, let's say. But it's very important to stay and to limit our CO2 emissions to respect the sustainability of our planet. This 2 tons is actually to guarantee a world with a 2-degree rise of temperatures by the end of the century. Why is it important to guarantee this rise of temperature? Because this rise of temperatures has a direct consequence on wildfires. I'm sure you heard about all the wildfires this summer. about the sea level rise, because if we stay in our business as usual, which is going to be the SSP 3.7, so SSP are basically some models developed by the IPCC to estimate what will be the consequences of the climate change. So if we stay in business as usual, we are going to face a 1 meter sea level rise by the end of the century. 1 meter, it's not that much, right, for us in Bucharest, or even 2 degrees temperature, it's not that much. I mean, it was hot this summer, but we survived. However, unfortunately, for countries like Maldives, for example, for Tuvalu, so which are islands in the Pacifics, this means that if we continue our business as usual, they will not survive. Their country will disappear by the end of this century. That said, our leaders have understood, are beginning to understand, how important it is to reduce your CO2 emissions, your greenhouse gases emissions. I'm sure you all heard about the COP27 that just finished last week. Me, myself, as a French people, I am personally proud of the COP21. I'm sure you heard about the Paris Agreement. The Paris Agreement is actually the commitment from all countries in the world to respect this 2-degree limit by the end of the century. In order to do so, the European Union in 2019 declared its ambition to become the first climate neutral, carbon neutral continent by 2050. This will be allowed by very concrete targets such as 55% reduction by 2030, and guess who is going to have to fight against climate change with the EU? Companies. So I already hear you say, why my company has to finance, has to work to fight against climate change. I'm going to show you this stat. In 2017, the Carbon Disclosure Project, which is really the reference on carbon footprint assessments in the world, declared that only 100 companies were responsible for more than 70% of greenhouse gas emissions. This is why the European Union, with the CSRD, which is actually an update of the NFRD, is going to oblige all companies of large public entities companies, so more than 500 employees, to report an ESG report, so in which you will find carbon footprint assessment, reduction policies, and also other social and governance indicators. And what's interesting to see here is that by 2027, all companies except micro companies, so also SMEs, are going to have to report this ESG report. This is where in ECONOS we intervene. So we talked about the carbon footprint at the beginning. Now I'm going to explain you very shortly what is a carbon footprint assessment. Carbon footprint assessment in theory is quite simple, quite straightforward. You're going to multiply your company's activity data, so for example, your consumption of electricity, by what we call an emission factor, which is going to convert megawatt hour of electricity to kilogram CO2 equivalent. Problem here in Romania that we're facing every day for carbon footprint assessments, but not only in Romania, this is an international problem, is the lack of data. This lack of data is mostly related to these emission factors. I'm proud to say that ECONOS is currently working with Ministerul Mediului on the creation of this first carbon database here in Romania. So soon, we hope that we will allow companies operating in Romania to have a more specific and localized carbon footprint assessment. But it's very important to understand that carbon footprint assessment is just the first step of a full sustainable commitment. First, we analyze, so carbon footprint assessment, then we do our best. We do our best, how we do our best to reduce your emissions. So I had the opportunity to hear a lot of reduction policies that were presented today. We are going to work on reduction policies that are tailored on your carbon footprint assessment. So based on our analysis, we'll be able to give you the best recommendations to reduce in the most efficient way. Finally, we removed the rest. We talked about the COPACH, the Plantam Padure, so it's very important to finance carbon offsets projects because tree, in average, sequestrates, captures 25 kilograms of CO2 equivalent per year once it's mature. So I will finish with my message that I hope that you understood today. It's not too late to act, but it's urgent. We have to act now. So please feel free to contact us at ECONOS, and together, let's reduce your carbon footprint. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Matthew. Thank you. So we'll wrap it up. This is all for today, and I'll switch back to Romanian. Mulțumim foarte mult pentru că ați fost alături de noi, mulțumim pentru această zi și mulțumim pentru toate cele 5 zile BIZ petrecute împreună, fie aici alături de noi în sală, fie de la distanță de acasă, de la birou sau din drumurile pe care le-ați avut de făcut. Suntem siguri că v-au inspirat discuțiile, v-au inspirat workshop-urile, prezentările pe care le-am descoperit împreună în aceste 5 zile BIZ petrecute aici la hotelul unde ne aflăm. De altfel, dacă v-a plăcut această experiență în 2023, să știți că o repetăm tot în noiembrie, când vă așteptăm la o nouă ediție Zilele BIZ. Până atunci, înregistrările sunt de găsit pe conturile noastre de social media, nu uitați să le verificați. De asemenea, pe site-ul revistei BIZ aveți extrase și principalele declarații și informații pe care le-am descoperit împreună în cele 5 zile BIZ de aici. Iar în cazul în care vă întrebați ce urmează foarte multe surprize, urmăriți revista BIZ și o să vă provocăm cu noi evenimente și cu informații de care aveți nevoie și o să facem asta destul de curând, pentru că marți, pe 29 noiembrie, echipa BIZ vă dă întâlnire la Brașov. Până atunci însă vreau să mulțumesc încă o dată partenerilor zilei de CSR, Lidl, Unicredit, Brico Depot, Nespresso, OMV Petrom, Electrolux, Coca-Cola HBC și Coca-Cola România. Eu sunt Toader Păun, mulțumesc pentru că am fost împreună la Zilele BIZ. Încheiem aici cea de-a 21-a ediție Zilele BIZ. Să ne revedem sănătoși, inspirați și cu afaceri prospere în 2023. O seară minunată!